I put the Igloo BMX 52 through a series of tests alongside the RTIC 45, the Amazon Commercial 45 quart cooler, and the YETI Tundra 45. I tested each of these coolers for their capacity, durability, ease of use, as well as their insulation and ice retention. At the end of my tests, I even cut all of these coolers in half to see what the differences were on the inside. I just discovered the truth about the Igloo BMX 52, and I'm gonna show you everything I learned right now. The Igloo BMX holds 53 cans of your favorite beverage, but if you need to know anything about Cooler Bill, it's that he likes his beverages frosty, so loading up on 83 lukewarm cans, it's just not gonna cut it. This is how I laid out 81 cans right here, so you can see it's pretty well packed in, but there's a couple spots where there's like a little bit of room, and these can kind of jiggle around. I tried to go for the 84, but it just kind of popped some of these up a little bit and they would get kind of, I don't know, crushed. So maybe I could, you know, maybe if you added some more right on top there, actually that might work. You might be able to pop in a couple others right here. But overall, just like to pack it without thinking too much, I'd say 81 cans is probably the max of what you're gonna get here. And you could actually even add a little bit of ice. There could be some ice around here. You can kind of, you know, move this stuff up so you could actually get some cooling down into the side. So there's a little bit of room for some cooling action going on. But I got 81 cans. However, with 7 pounds of ice, the Igloo BMX holds more like 65 cans, which is enough to hold Cooler Bill over for a night. But the number of cans only tells part of the story. Each of the coolers I tested have subtle design differences, so that even though they carry the same liquid capacity, you can store more in some compared to others. The best way I found to quantify this using science is called space efficiency. As you can see, the Igloo BMX 52 performed the best in terms of how much it can store relative to its size. The Igloo 52 not only has more liquid capacity, but it's also more efficient with that space as well. So it's really the roomiest of the coolers in a lot of different ways. I'd say that if you have like a 5-person family and you want to do an overnight or a 2-day, then that bit of extra room is going to really come in handy. The Igloo has markedly less insulation compared to all 3 other coolers, which you're going to see when I cut them in half. The YETI and Amazon coolers were decent in terms of space. All rotomotive coolers end up being a lot smaller inside than they look from the outside. That's just part of what it is. The only cooler that really disappointed me on the storage space was the RTIC, which you can see came in last. For the installation test, I placed 7 pounds of ice in each of these coolers at the same time, and I measured their temperature with a probe continuously for 100 hours. Now I did this in my garage in the middle of the summer, so the ambient temperature was generally right around 85 to 90 degrees for the 3 days that I took the measurements. Here's my data for all my insulation tests. I wanted to make sure that the conditions were the same for each, so I just tested them all at the same time. I didn't open any of these coolers at any point during the test, but I occasionally did give them a little bit of a jiggle just to see if they still had ice. In the graph on the screen you can see right now, the yellow line on this graph represents the Igloo BMX 52, and as you can see, it performed worse than the other coolers in this test. Here's a closer look. The Igloo BMX 52 held under 40 degrees for 51 hours compared to the YETI's best 71 hours. Now this is still plenty of time if you're doing a 2-day trip and you want to cook steaks for your last night. I should note that these temps were taken in a North Carolina summer, so the 51 hours applies to when the heat and humidity is way up. So if it's cold outside, these coolers can keep their temps below 40 degrees for much longer, though I don't have data from the winter for that, so I don't know, we're just gonna have to guess. In my test, it took another 10 hours for the contents of the Igloo to reach to 50 degrees, which is what I would consider the limit of frostiness for your beverage. I don't have a great test for durability, so I just filled them up with ice and I dumped all these coolers off of a ladder. I'm gonna show you some of that right now. Science. Now in terms of durability, the Igloo BMX 52 is definitely the least sturdy of the coolers that I tested. I still don't have an excellent test for this metric other than just to go by feel and kind of how it feels when I'm opening it and all that good stuff. Now it's clear that the Igloo BMX 52 has the thinnest plastic. It has the least robust fittings. It doesn't feel like there's an appreciable difference between like the YETI, the Amazon, or the RTIC coolers. They're all rotomolded, and with that, you're gonna get a tank-like durability pretty much across the board. Overall, it's not like you're gonna pick up your Igloo cooler and then have it snap in half or anything like that, but the blow-molded construction here, it's considerably less robust than a rotomolded build like you get over here. Now, you could see some of what it looked like when I was throwing these coolers off a ladder, and if that's something you wanna do, you could do it, it's fine. Ease of use is really about how easy this thing is to lug around. Now I'd say the Igloo BMX 52 is the easiest to get around, and the YETI comes in second. RTIC is definitely the worst. Here's how the empty weights compare. The Igloo here weighs in at just over 16 pounds, so after that there's a significant 8-pound leap to the rotomolded coolers. If you're getting a rotomolded cooler for the better insulation and durability, you're gonna have to sacrifice on weight for sure, so I hope you're hitting the weights. I know Cooler Bill is. The RTIC is actually almost 13 pounds heavier than the Igloo, which is nearly double the weight, which is pretty insane. For an empty cooler, that is a huge deal especially when you load these things up. All of the roto-molded 45 quart coolers I tested, they all have rope handles. The Igloo, it's the only cooler that I tested that has these hard handles, which is actually my preference when these coolers are fully loaded and they're super heavy. They're like 50 to 70 pounds. However, the rope handles, they do make it easier for 2 people to carry. So it makes sense why they have rope handles, why all of them do pretty much. But I'm the kind of person, I purposely deny help so I can show off my manliness and hurt my back. Now, I do like the Amazon Cooler's latch system the most. The rubber T-handles on the YETI, they perform well. Rubber T-handles on the Igloo perform well. The Amazon one makes a little more sense, but it does, whenever you shut it, they always get stuck in there. I have 2 words for you. Fish ruler. You heard that right. The BMX 52 has a molded in fish ruler right here. So if you're an avid angler, you can measure a fish. And if you're like the rest of us and you just like measuring fish for fun, you could do that here too. You could measure any kind of fish, salmon. You can, a dog. Any kind of thing you want to measure, you can measure it right here on top of this. Now, if you're not constantly measuring fish, then there are 4 tie downs right here in the corners, which are really helpful. The latches are these rubber T-handles, which are fairly easy to do. Sorry about that noise. It's fairly easy to do with a single hand. However, I did struggle a few times getting the cooler open one-handed, as the latches are pretty stiff, but you gotta break them in a little bit, I guess, I don't know. There's also a drain spigot on the side, so you can easily drain water out when you're a day into camping and you wanna get some of that water out. It's super great. So now that we know everything there is about how the Igloo BMX 52 performs, let's cut this thing in half and see how it compares to the other cooler brands. Like Cooler Bill always says, safety first. All right, let's get this thing opened up and take a look on what's on the inside. What the heck is this? Oh, of course, these look like these are 100% USA made merino wool socks that help keep your feet dry and comfortable. So guys, these are Camel City Mill socks. They're designed specifically for guys who work tough jobs and have sweaty feet. Now, if you struggle with sweaty feet and your work boots tend to get damp, moldy, or if your feet just get swampy and uncomfortable at the end of a work shift, then you're gonna love these socks. They're made with Ironside merino wool, which is a special fiber that allows Camel City Mill to put a ridiculous 10-year guarantee on their socks. Each one of these pairs is gonna last 10 years. Plus, they're made in North Carolina, so you're getting a 100% USA made product, and that's something Cooler Bill absolutely loves. Beyond that, these socks, they have a light compression through the arch and the calf, so your feet still feel refreshed after working a 14-hour shift. So I recommend getting the best-selling Camel City Mill lightweight work socks. This is the lightweight in black. Here is the lightweight in gray. Both of these are available. You can get them in the link in the description down below. That was awesome. Now let's go ahead and actually get this thing open and see what it looks like on the inside. All right, so I ended up cutting 3 in half. I didn't cut the RTIC in half. I knew that one I wasn't gonna end up really recommending because it just didn't perform as well in the installation. It was a little too heavy. So it's the one I'm gonna end up keeping for some reason, even though it's like my least favorite. Anyway, that's how Cooler Bill does. Now, brief overview of what we got here. This is YETI, the Igloo, and the Amazon. The Amazon actually ended up having the most amount of insulation, but I think the way it's distributed means for whatever reason, the YETI did perform the best. So the insulation in here, there must be something special about the insulation going on in the YETI because it did perform better in those ice tests despite having less insulation. Like the Amazon even has like 3 inches of insulation here, or like 2.75 inches of insulation on the sides and on the top, whereas the YETI has 3 inches of insulation on the top, but it's about 2 inches everywhere else. So I think that's what I'm noticing here is when I'm comparing all of these coolers together, YETI has the most like uniform insulation. Igloo has the least uniform insulation, and the Amazon has the most, but it is not completely uniform. So that might also have something to do with it. Another thing that's really important to note is that the Amazon and the YETI both have this rubber gasket, which you can see right here. That helps a lot keeping the air, out or keeping the air in. The Igloo does not have that at all. So that's another reason why the Igloo did not perform nearly as well as these roto-molded coolers. Something a little more premium, it's gonna have that rubber gasket. I think if you want a cooler that's gonna keep your stuff cold for a long time, you're gonna need that rubber gasket for sure. To sum it all up, I do think that the YETI Tundra 45 is the best cooler of the bunch. It performed the best in my insulation and ice retention tests, plus it was more lightweight and comfortable than all the other roto-molded coolers. However, the Igloo BMX 52 is my favorite budget cooler. I love how lightweight it is and how much it can store, plus the price is right. Now, if you're looking for a smaller cooler, I definitely recommend you checking out this video next.